Hello, and welcome to another Executive Spotlight on AeroTime. This time, we're talking to Martin Gauss, the President and CEO of airBaltic. We will discuss how the airline has returned to profitability despite several external factors working against it, and what makes the airBaltic experience special. We will, of course, delve into how the Airbus A220, despite the current engine issues, has propelled airBaltic into a league of its own. Additionally, we will explore various tech-related choices, including a partnership with Starlink, to continue to foster innovation in the airline. So, sit down and enjoy a fascinating conversation with Martin Gauss, the man who has been leading airBaltic for nearly 12 years. So, hello Martin, thank you for speaking to us. First of all, congratulations on the recently announced Q2 and H1 results, which were positive. How would you rate the results yourself?
As we said, they were record-breaking in 27 years. We did not have a net result positive in the way we saw it now for the half year. Also, revenue-wise, we've never been as large. Most important is that this is after COVID, still the war going on, and that makes it special. If we look at our EBITDA margin, we are at the top in Europe now also, so it's a solid result, which is important because we want to do the IPO next year. So we are forecasting this kind of performance. We are delivering, and that is the most important, how we read the result. Of course, you have a different visibility in the company while you do the business, what it will be like, and it always has a delay of like a month before you announce, but very happy with it.
Yeah. So naturally, one of the problems we had during the quarter and throughout the 2023 is the grounding of the Airbus A220 aircraft related to your engine problems. So how many aircraft did you have grounded at its peak?
12 aircraft, no, at the peak 13 aircraft,
yeah.
But average was 11 in the half year, and in Q2 it was 12. It's reducing now because the engine deliveries, so the engines were in our hangar. They did not have the spots, the places to go, the MROs where they would have been maintained. Now we get them back very fast, actually faster than expected now, but we are now in the third quarter. But in the peak we had a lot of aircraft on the ground, and we had to take in wet lease ourselves to deliver the revenues and the results.
How many aircraft do you currently have on the ground?
7. Today it's 7. But the number is reducing. We expect to have none on the ground, actually the opposite, by the end of November.
Okay. Are you still wet leasing aircraft? I assume so. But
yes.
How many?
We have today, I think it's 7. It changes now. It's going to reduce. But for the winter season, we will have no wet leases in. Yeah. We initially planned the year before that engine issue escalated. We planned to have 4 aircraft for the whole season. That was a long-term plan. But then the whole situation changed, and we had a larger number ad hoc, which was very expensive short-term to take them in. But we couldn't afford to cancel flights. We had very good forward bookings, and especially from here, from the Baltics, there's a very limited alternative offer. So if we would have cancelled the flights, the passengers wouldn't have had their holidays, and therefore we decided we take in other airlines, which was very painful and is painful because people buy the most modern aircraft you can have, a ticket on airBaltic, and then they end up on a wet leased in aircraft, which is never the same quality. We also cannot deliver the same service. Operationally, that is also an issue because an airline which is flying temporary for you does normally not deliver the same consistent operation. So all of these issues we had this summer, and despite that we were delivering the results.
Yeah. Do you have an estimate of the material impact that the engine issues had on your results?
We are still in it, so we are in constant discussions with Pratt & Whitney over these issues, and we have last year we had discussed a commercial agreement about it, and also this year, and we are still in these discussions. So that is not finalized because the situation is not over. We expect the situation to go well into 2024. I said at the quarterly report, I said that we expect the situation not to be over before the end of 2024.
Yeah, but which factors do you think led to airBaltic achieving a significant and record-breaking profit during the period, despite the unfavorable conditions, including the engine grounds and the war in Ukraine?
I think we have had many years now to introduce this single fleet type, 150-seater. It's a very unique aircraft, now proven that it can deliver the performance and the cost savings needed. And if we analyze what leads to the success, it's a combination of selling the right amount of tickets at the right price, but also having a unified fleet with the efficiency, because we need to see that the aircraft is completely different compared to other aircraft in this category, older aircraft, if we look at the fuel consumption, but also at the maintenance cost and at the ability. We can fly to Dubai direct from Vilnius and from Riga, but we can also fly to Tallinn. We use the same aircraft and it does both very well. It's very accepted by the passengers, not only in airBaltic, also when we fly wet lease for others. And it's a combination, but you track an airline on the CASK and on the RASK performance. If we look at the CASK without fuel, that is exactly where we want to have it today. And that will get better if we fly more of these aircraft, because then the overhead is supported by more aircraft. If we look at the RASK, the revenue, then we were also this year enjoying the same than others as fuel prices went up. In general, cost went up, also the ticket prices went up, and with that, of course, having a higher load factor, having better ticket prices out there led to the results.
Yeah. But you also mentioned that you wet leased aircraft to other airlines. How many aircraft did you wet lease during the peak season period?
We are still wet leasing the same amount. It's 14 aircraft to different carriers. That is one part of the business which developed after COVID, where we said we didn't delay the stream of incoming Airbuses in the COVID time, but we found a way to place the aircraft while Russia, Ukraine, Belarusian airspace closure and countries closure. So we thought it's temporary. Now we changed our mind and have taken that part of a business as part of airBaltic's business going forward, also expanding on it. But what we are offering is very different to a normal wet lease operation. You can today not have that kind of aircraft, 150-seater, most modern aircraft, with a cabin crew which can do premium service in business and economy, and they're flying one sector on us, on our product, and then they go to a wet lease partner which might have the same product. So we deliver a service plus an aircraft which is not available in Europe. And I think it has been very successful for us, and looking into the future, the demand for our product in wet lease out is very high. We could put much more aircraft in this sector. We will not, because the backbone of this airline is the connectivity of the Baltics and beyond. But if we look at growth for the next years, then there will be a higher number of aircraft in wet lease out.
During the quarter, you also introduced a seasonal base in Gran Canaria, Spain, that will come online in October, right?
Yeah, first flights are in December.
Yeah.
It's just for the winter season. 2 aircraft will be based in Gran Canaria, and with that we can offer 10 destinations in the Nordics, so in the Baltics and the Nordics. So these 2 aircraft will shuttle starting in Gran Canaria, shuttling to the north and back. That is, from a rotation point of view, better for us. That's why we base them there. But that is not seen as something that we have a new base and then will be there forever. This is a seasonal basing of 2 aircraft. It's something new, and we are addressing also new markets where we have, it's not charter flights, it's a regular flight with a lot of groups booked on there, and it's a very popular destination from Norway, Denmark, and from the Baltics.
Yeah. But do you think the base could operate for the whole year in the future? Maybe a few years down the line?
No, not at all. I don't see Gran Canaria as one of the bases for the summer for us, because I think the tour operators, the charter airlines, larger equipment is much better suited for that kind of operation. But for us, with the 150-seater, we saw an opportunity, especially in Norway and in Denmark. We see very promising numbers there in the forward bookings, plus tour operators taking some larger contingent on the aircraft. So it is a winter basing of 2 aircraft. It's something new we do, and I think we will see more of these things in the future. But the backbone of our business is to expand in the Baltics and the Nordics.
So we can only assume that you're still maybe exploring other opportunities in other tourist destinations during the winter, right?
I mean, we have a big offer for the winter. If we look at the Baltics, we fly, for example, the first Finnish domestic route now from Tampere to Kittilä, which is a destination we offered so far from Riga. It was successful from here, so that's also something new. But overall, we are focusing on the three Baltic states, Tampere, and yeah, we are eyeing at the Nordics, as we always say, and see what opportunities are there, because this is where we are well known, and then it's much easier to capture traffic from there.
If we return briefly to the Gran Canaria base, you mentioned that you will fly to many Scandinavian cities. What kind of advantages do you think airBaltic has over the local airlines, such as Norwegian or the big legacy carriers?
I think the 150-seaters are easier to fill than their 180-seaters or 200-seaters. We have very competitive cost as airBaltic, and with that we can offer good ticket prices. I think that these are our advantages. And we see it, the product is accepted. We have a business class, a full service business class, which is a differentiation to all the other carriers flying. We had a very nice pickup on all the leisure destinations. We have a middle seat free business class with a full service, like you have it from a traditional carrier. Comes at a price, but it's very successful for us. And that dual service, having an ultra low cost concept in the back and having a business class in the front, gives you a different passenger mix and a different yield.
Yeah. So if we look forward a bit, you said that July positively, for the first time since 2019, you had 500,000 passengers. What kind of expectations are you having for Q3?
Strongest quarter as expected by all airlines, I think, the summer quarter. So we have. We are seeing July now, it's there, we are in August and it hasn't changed, so we will see a strong third quarter. We are now targeting the year end already, looking into the fourth quarter, and we gave guidance that we are positive about reaching the targets we have set ourselves.
So what kind of expectations do you have for the full year?
We give guidance because now, as we have a bond at the stock exchange, we have to speak in that language. So the guidance is between 670 and 700 million revenues. On the EBITDA, where we give guidance, it's between 130 to 155 million positive EBITDA. We don't give guidance on a net result because this is heavily impacted by exchange rate and other factors. Therefore, it would be pure speculation. But we target 4.4 million passengers on our network, while we have around 1.6 million passengers carried for others. So that is also a very large number. And we also gave guidance on the production, which should be 10 billion ASKs.
Yeah. Now, speaking about your fleet, which is the Airbus A220, I want to backtrack a little bit. You first announced your acquisition of the Airbus A220 with your Horizon 2021 strategy. Why did you choose the Airbus A220?
A long time ago we took that decision. It was when I came here in end of 2011, the company had already taken a decision to renew the jet fleet in the future, and there was a tender process. There was only Airbus there who was offering A320s. When I came, I opened the process again. I invited Boeing, and at a later stage we invited also Bombardier, because they said they would have an aircraft CS300 which would be also able to compete with the two others. We then had in the final round the A319neo, the 737-700 MAX and the CS300, today Airbus A220. And all three of them were in the building to give their last and final offer, and we started with Bombardier. They gave us a very good offer. We went then to Airbus. They couldn't match it, and also Boeing couldn't match it. And the comparison between the three aircraft showed that the performance of the CS300 was better than the performance of the other two. That was at a time when none of the aircraft was flying. So all of them had theoretical figures, while Boeing and Airbus already had an aircraft. They just wanted to go with new engines and some other design changes. Today we know that the CS300, the Airbus A220, the other two can't compete with it, because it's lighter. Mainly it's lighter with the same engine technology, so it is performing better. But at the time it was purely based economics combination with price, and we took the right decision. And then we became the launch operator for the 300 version, and since then we have been very successful. At that time we didn't know that we would be a full A220 operator one day. That was a decision we took later, and in COVID we accelerated then the exit of the turboprops, We exited the Boeings at the beginning of the COVID time, and the turboprops we grounded for 2 years so that we could focus only on the A220. And 2023 is the first year where we would have flown only with Airbus A220, and then we were hit by the engine problems where we still have other aircraft flying for us, which disturbs a little bit the results, because flying an A320 or A321 as we do is not the same performance than the A220. So once we are out of wet leasing in, we will see the full effect of the A220 single fleet operation, and that is very powerful. That is actually so powerful that we play in our own league, because we have competitor with Ryanair, Wizz Air, Norwegian, all the traditional carriers. But if you analyze us and all the details, then you come to the conclusion that we have a unique positioning because of that single fleet operation on an aircraft with 150 seats.
Yeah, but could you maybe go to the process of why did you decide to go to become an all Airbus A220 operator?
Purely the performance. The product is so different to if you go into an A220 today. We have carried 12 million passengers just on the A220 so far. If you go into the cabin, we still today get tweets and comments from passengers what a different experience that is. So there is a passenger experience on that aircraft. Also, our seat pitch is significant larger than on traditional low-cost carriers. The aircraft performance, the fuel burn, the CO2 emission, the noise, all of that on that aircraft in the combination with the range it offers is unique. And then being able to only have to fill 150 seats gives us an advantage to fly on smaller routes against competition. And that has been very successful when we started the operation. We saw that. Once we had Boeings and turboprops flying, but we very quickly saw that the economic advantage of using the A220 on these routes was so high that it was a clear decision to say, okay, if we would have only A220s, we would have that effect multiplied, and then the decision was clear.
So now we have 50 aircraft in order in total. You have 42 in your fleet right now, right?
Yeah, two coming actually next week, so 44 end of next week.
Yeah. So when we talked a couple of months ago, you said that you were interested in exercising your options for 30 more aircraft.
Yes.
Is there any update on that process with Airbus?
The same update. So we are discussing with Airbus exercising the 30 options and adding 20 options. We have developed a business plan until 2030, where we have two scenarios. One is with 80 aircraft, one is with 100 aircraft. Both of them will be used, both scenarios will be used when we prepare for the IPO now, and that is the growth airBaltic will show, and for that we need additional aircraft.
Yeah, so how would you finance such an acquisition?
As we did before, so when we have sufficient equity, we would put some on the balance sheet, and, which we have today. 8 of them are on our balance sheet, and if not, we would do sale and leaseback. We've just concluded the 50th aircraft sale and leaseback, as it is today the most common way of doing it. We would order the aircraft, and then we normally do a batch of 4 to 6 aircraft, do a tender, and then do sale and leaseback.
Okay. So you mentioned the plan that you have, so one is either operating 80 aircraft, one is 100. What factors would influence your decision, which way to go?
The two factors, one is the demand for wet lease out for our ACMI business, because we have a number dedicated which should do this part of the business, which is a very profitable part. And the other one is the demand, how good can we expand so the minimum is basically 80 aircraft, but if it works well, then we can add as we need it and go up to 100. That is today's plan in 2023. It's a 7-year horizon, and we all know a lot of things can happen. So maybe this is not even enough. Sometimes I hear people and say, okay, if you want to really grow, and we look at our competitors, and these numbers are very small. But we have to see where we came from, and we have the first year where we prove the concept works. And I think it is now the time to say, okay, we can grow from there on, because we have proven that the system works. Yeah.
Speaking of the A220, there have been rumors, Airbus basically confirmed that there's going to be a stretch happening. Well, there hasn't been any new developments regarding it, but if Airbus were to hand you a blank sheet of paper and said, what do you want with the stretch? What kind of specifications would you ask Airbus?
So we would go for one which has the same range, more seats, right? So which is a bit difficult because that means you need to change the engine as well and the wing. But we would go for a stretched version. We said that because there is a lot of routes in the summer, in the peak summer, also the Dubai routes where you can sell more seats and then you would have an economic advantage. But I think it's still a while away, that stretched version, because of what has to be changed. Is it wing, engine and gear, or is it just stretching the cabin and leaving everything as is? Then you wouldn't have the range. So we will see what they come up with, and I'm sure that in the future there would be, if it's the same cockpit, that there would be a need for it in airBaltic.
Yeah. So I mean, as Airbus said, they're solving the supply chain issues basically today, before looking on to the stretch. But speaking about you, mentioned before that you expect the Pratt & Whitney engine issues to continue until late 2024. So are there any estimations of how many aircraft would you have to ground in the next peak season in the summer of 2024?
We have a weekly forecast on how many engines we get back. As we get larger and larger, more and more engines are going into maintenance and returning. And the issue is they are not returning. The time they need in the MRO facilities until they return back is pretty long. And that time, if that goes down, and that's where we base our forecasts on, will lead to a certain amount of aircraft grounded or not. We go now into winter where we will have even more aircraft than we need, so there will be aircraft available to do something with because of the winter schedule. But then when we go into next spring, from the forecast, we already now see that we will be missing aircraft. We have two chances now. We reduce our program, or we take wet leases in for next summer, and that is a decision we are currently discussing.
Okay. What if, with the Airbus A220 stretch, the manufacturer would introduce another engine option? Would you go for it? Or, I mean, what are the pros and cons of doing such a decision of changing the engine that you operate yourself?
We would look at the economics of this. So we are not married to one engine manufacturer. We would look at the economics and then take an economic decision.
Okay. Looking from the outside, Airbus, I mean, not Airbus, but airBaltic has been very receptive to new technologies like NFTs, usage of AI tools, and as well as announcing a partnership with Starlink. Do you think this provides airBaltic with an advantage in front of your customers?
Yeah, I think we have the most modern aircraft you can fly at the moment. That is definitely an advantage we see. We even hear this from the ones when we fly wet lease for others and fly with an A220. The passengers of these airlines say to these airlines, why don't you have this aircraft? So that the innovation spirit in airBaltic has led us to where we are today. Many airlines have disappeared around us. We are here, we are strong. And that is also because we take innovative, the spirit of the company is very innovative. I think we are one of the innovation leaders, depending on how you define innovation. But we have an inside, we're a small airline, but we have an inside spirit where innovation is allowed to grow. And I think that in airBaltic is unique because we always come up without being ordered, right? We come up in-house with these ideas. This is not from outside. And if we look at, we introduced Bitcoin as a form of payment in 2014 already. You could say it's not an innovation, but it was at that time something unique. From that we developed and we have an NFT collection out there, which is not just an NFT collection. If you analyze it and the people who understand that space, we are on the blockchain with our frequent flyer program, tokenizing it and having something very valuable. It helps us even make money, but on top of it, the loyalty program we have is upgraded to a level which is not there in the world yet. That's an innovation. Yes, AI we are using like a lot of airlines where it makes sense, and we have some use cases where really the airline will benefit from. And for the future, we are looking at whatever new technology comes there that we can reduce the burning fossil fuel. So the ultimate game for us as airlines needs to be in a long-term future, can we fly with something which doesn't burn fuel? And I think the innovation spirit has shown in airBaltic that we'll be also leading in this respect. But we will not be jumping on any trend, because there is just no jet today which can be powered without sustainable aviation fuel or fossil fuel. So we shouldn't dream about having a change in the next 5 years. But it is important to be open to innovation, because the technology which might fix it at the end, be it hydrogen or whatever, when it comes, it needs the support. And I think if you have an innovation spirit in a company, you will be more open to new things, and that's what we want to keep.
Yeah. So a few months ago, I think it was, you announced a partnership with Starlink. What's the latest there?
A delay. They refocused the engineers on the Mars mission, and it's the same people working in SpaceX on that. We have an estimate now that we introduce it next spring.
Yeah.
Next summer. We need an STC from Airbus as well, and that means a lot of engineering support. It's sad, because we would love to have it already by the end of this year, but currently it is delayed into next year. I have to say that if it comes, it's such a change for the passengers' experience that it's worth waiting now to have it. Of course, we would love to have it now, but it's not available yet.
Speaking about the passenger experience, do you think the Baltic market has matured enough to, for the customers to value passenger experience over the price of the flight?
In fairness, passengers are going for price first in all markets now. So if there's a competitor which offers a lower price, the passenger takes the lower price. Why are we then still selling tickets when our low-cost competitor is selling cheaper? It's either the better connectivity, so the better offer, so the passenger just wants to fly maybe on the same airline there and back, or it's the better timing. But when we go head-to-head and somebody is offering a lower price, then traditionally the passenger goes for the lower price. That is the reality in Europe. So either you have a unique offering, which we have. We are the market leader in the Baltics, which means we have more on offer, and therefore we can have the passengers here. Or if there is a head-to-head with a competitor, then people go for price. With exceptions, if somebody wants to travel in business class, he goes on us. We have a complete different distribution system. We're now distributing 195 countries in the world through our codeshare partners. So if somebody books a flight in Germany, he might book Lufthansa and then fly on us. So if you fly, you book a ticket in Sydney, then you're flying on Emirates to Dubai and then to Riga, and that's a codeshare. So that is something which differentiates us a lot from low-costers, these corporations. But if it's head-to-head from here to Rome with a low-cost competitor, then the lower price wins.
Yeah. In general, after the COVID-19 pandemic essentially ended last year, have you regained market share from the low-cost competitors? How is the market looking in the Baltics in general?
We have significant gain market share from our competitors. We offered more, and as we offer more, we gain the market share. So this is at the moment it looks as when we offer more, we are filling it and we are gaining market share. We are growing the market and we are gaining market share. So both very successful in all 3 Baltic states. We are market leader in Riga. I think July, just sourced July, we are now at 60% in July. Market share at Riga. We are market leader in Estonia now, and we are number 2 in Vilnius. So the 3 Baltic states, we are very well set. Tampere, we are anyway market leader because 75% I think there. So yeah, we gain market share. We grow, but we also gain market share from competition. And we have completely offset the missing traffic from Russia, Belarus and Ukraine. So that is completely offset by growing our home markets. We grew organically and took not only additional traffic, we also took market share from others.
So you briefly mentioned that at Tampere you have a 75% share. How has the base been performing in general? And how many aircraft do you have based there?
First summer when we opened it, okay. First winter, not okay. Now this summer, very well. And we are looking into the winter, how it is developing. But this summer worked very well for us. So I think if you open something, you need to be consistent. We are still changing which destinations make more sense. because we are not offering just destinations, we offer connectivity. With the co-chairs we are flying into hubs of partners next to the leisure traffic, and that is important for the connectivity. airBaltic's role wherever we fly is a connectivity role on top of course providing a point-to-point leisure service. But if you fly into Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Munich, we have KLM, Air France, Lufthansa co-chairs. That means passengers are then going somewhere else, be it long haul, be it a destination which is not offered from here. And that is our unique model. And therefore Tampere is a business city with a catchment area of 1 million people. And there's a lot of demand for connectivity. And then, of course, the bread and butter business today in Europe is leisure traffic. So you have to offer both. And that is where we are analyzing what works, what doesn't. And we will adjust summer and winter accordingly.
Okay, so but how many aircraft do you have there currently?
One, just one.
Just one?
Just
Okay.
one. And if it's successful, then there will be another one added. Similar to Tallinn.
Yeah.
We started Tallinn by just flying to Riga. Then we put one aircraft. We offered 4 destinations, but the connectivity via Riga stayed. Today we have 3 aircraft there, 16 point-to-point destinations. The connectivity via Riga is still there, but we fly from Estonia now as a market leader, the most passengers point-to-point, and that shows that we can do this. We're not jumping in and saying we're going to base 4 aircraft and deliver 3 million passengers. This is not airBaltic. We start slow, connect via Riga hub. Like Tampere was always connected to Riga, and then we start flying with 1 aircraft, point-to-point, 2nd aircraft, and so on.
Looking into the future, I think one of the major developments will be your IPO next year. So what's the current status of the IPO?
We are in the selection process for the advisors and the banks. That should be finished by the end of this year, and then the earliest listing of the company is 3rd quarter next year. That is the current plan, but that depends on the markets. So the markets need to be right. It's just starting IPOs. There was for a long time no IPOs. Our IPO is very special because it is the largest one in the Baltic states. It is one which the Latvian government will do, and then maybe a series of state-owned companies will follow in Latvia. So it is also strengthening the local market. It is also kind of an education for the Baltic public about stock exchange, because we have the strongest brand Latvia has, or I guess in the Baltics the strongest brand known outside. We will dual list it, so there will be Nasdaq Riga, but because of the liquidity here there will be an international stock exchange where there will be a dual listing. And of course we are an airline, and no airline since Wizz Air has tried to go to the stock exchange in the last 9 years next year. So that is also unique. And if we look at international investors, the airline industry is not top of the notch of what you would invest in. So a lot of factors, but what we see is the international feedback about our story is very well received. And the feedback now, talking to investors, they say if you can show the right growth and have the right numbers there, then it's an interesting IPO. So it could also be, I remember Wizz Air, they tried it 2014, then they said we don't do it, they did it a year later. So we will start preparing for 2024, but we have some time to do it. The target is to do it in 2024, but if not, then we would do it a year later, or try a year later.
Which factors would influence that decision to delay the IPO?
Clearly the financial markets not accepting your IPO. Yeah, so that is when you have the advisors and they say that doesn't make sense. You better listen to the advisors and don't say, okay, we do it anyway. But the IPO is a process where, of course, driven by numbers. A lot of it is just numbers, but also the story needs to be credible. And I think story-wise, airBaltic is a cool story now, but we are competing with a lot of other stories out there. The market leader, Ryanair, Wizz Air, very successful one. So there is airlines there who show incredible growth stories, very good numbers. And now you're going and saying, okay, we also gonna, because if you as an investor put your money into an airline, you can choose, right? You take one of the ones which is already there, or you take Lufthansa or whatever, and then you say, what will happen to my money? So we have to convince the shareholders that putting it into airBaltic stock makes sense, and then they make a good profit on it. And that drives the IPO.
Will the Latvian government retain a stake in airBaltic?
I hope so, because I hope so, because we are the national carrier. We have had a tremendous support from our shareholder in the last 27 years. The Latvia, the many different governments in Latvia have always supported airBaltic as long as it was possible legally, and it was always a success because the airline never had to go through an insolvency. We never let anybody down by restructuring any financing. People always got their money. We always paid on time all the leases, and I think the Latvian state can be proud of finding always the right mechanism to keep the airline system and the connectivity alive. Now they have a very valuable connectivity system, the strongest in the Baltic states, a strong brand, most modern aircraft. I think it is also it's a sign for Latvia. If you look at from the outside, then what is in Latvia really a strong brand? It's airBaltic, and at the end of the day, the support of the shareholder. And I'm not saying that because they are my shareholder. I say that as a German running this airline, having seen other airlines, right? The people always say he has to say that because of the government. No, I'm a manager who sees how a shareholder can act. And I've seen it all around me, all these airlines coming and going. We had all the insolvencies now. This airline did not go through an insolvency. The shareholders, we have also private shareholders, took at the time the right decision to maintain what was the core. It shrank, but then it was adjusted, and the management of the company was allowed to present the way how they would do it, and then it's the shareholder who says, yeah, we trust you and you can go ahead. The result is here now. It's a very successful global brand which now tries to pay back the money to the shareholder. So it was at the end of it's anyway a good investment because the GDP impact and the taxes we pay, it's a very positive investment for the state. But when we will return now the money which was given in the COVID time, then it is net positive also on the cash, because there's an interest on top of it. So the Latvian state hopefully keeps a large share, but they might be in the minority. That is a decision they take after or at the IPO by saying we are selling shares or we are just being diluted with the new money coming in.
So also in your H1 report, you mentioned that airBaltic is currently exploring options to refinance the euro 200 million euro bond, which matures in July 2024, while also issuing a new $300 million bond. Could you explain why?
We have to pay back that bond or refinance it next year in July, and we took a decision to top it up. Basically, we can call that bond early. It has developed very well. It was down at 60, now it's back close to 100. And we decided that this would be a prudent way to go for now you go for a dollar bond, that's the feedback from the market, 300 to 350 million, to refinance the 200 million early, so then that is paid back. And then we have new capital, which gives us a lot of liquidity for the time to come, preparing for the IPO either next year or the year after. So that is the rationale behind it. Also helps us to order the aircraft and all of that. That's what we try to do this year in September, October. But it's the same thing, capital markets. There will be a higher interest on that one as the capital markets, as the interest rates have changed. First feedback here is also that people like it, and we are now finalizing this, have hired 2 investment banks which are doing this together with us.
Looking at the general European airline market, merger and consolidation talks have subsided, apart from Lufthansa acquiring ITA Airways and as well as the potential TAP Air Portugal sale. But do you think the market still has some room for consolidation in Europe?
Yeah, I think we will see more consolidation because at the end of the day we are following in the US market. So many airlines will be less and less airlines. There will still be more than people think. It will not just be 5 big airlines, but consolidation will continue. If we look at airBaltic, then we are on our own today. If we do the IPO, then we'll grow on our own. But that doesn't mean that we will be one day part of a larger group, but still being an independent airline. Like ITA is also an airline serving Italy. The other airlines in Europe, we still see a lot of movement. Yeah, we have Finnair with a new model now due to the closure of the airspace. We have Norwegian after the insolvency being a new airline now. We just had in Estonia. Nordica rearranging themselves, a very small airline. And if you look at these different airlines, a lot can happen. We have SAS still in a Chapter 11 proceeding. And if we go then further down, we have many airlines in Europe where doing a good job, especially this year, but where there is a potential to say, okay, they merge with one or another. And the large groups will either grow on their own and then outgrow the competition there, or they might acquire. And you can never say what is next, yeah. The large ones, you normally have a public debate, but other ones, if there is a small one, then you would not hear this before, and it just happens.
Looking at the Baltic airline market, do you think there's still room for growth and a lot of growth?
Yeah, definitely there's room for growth, because if we look at Riga Airport, we are restricted by the airport more than, because the airport is at its limits now in summer. They have three jetties. They have all this airport terminal, but they can't get their jetties to work. They have a 2-year horizon for getting spare parts for the jetties, so same spare part issues. They don't have stairs with huts at Riga. So lots of things where we are limited. Yeah, if you look at the winter operation, our passengers have to stand in the rain here. If we look at Estonia, much better. So there's also potential to grow, but I think a very large growth can come from Vilnius, Kaunas. There the strategy is different. The Lithuanian airports are focusing on Wizz Air, Ryanair, and not so much on the connectivity. That's good for the overall transportation of passengers. Connectivity, I would say, from my take, the best connectivity from the Baltic states is reached in Riga, followed by Estonia, and then only, because connectivity means how many cities can you reach, business cities, economic cities in the world, not only in Europe, with a one-stop connectivity. And that is definitely the number one is Riga, then followed by Estonia. Has to do with how many larger hubs you are serving in what frequency. And looking at the 3 Baltic states, all of them can still grow. Here, the airport just increases the fares now. Not smart, because that will reduce actually the carriers seeing it as an attractive airport to come here. As it is our home airport, we have to swallow it, but I'm not happy. Just increasing fares, not getting a better service is not something I like, but then that's it. Yeah, we are the national carrier here, and we have to fly from here, and will expand here as well as we can. But Estonia and Vilnius for us, Kaunas not, because we're not focusing on Kaunas, are markets where we can expand.
Okay. Another market you could probably expand, well, this is a bit of a stretch, but still, in July 2023, the FAA said that Latvia now is a Category 1 country. Do you think there's a potential for a US airline codeshare with airBaltic, or perhaps even a 5th freedom flight to the US?
We have a codeshare now with the US airline, actually for quite a while, but now it comes into effect with Delta Airlines.
Yeah.
Delta Airlines serving, I think, 35 points in Europe from where the codeshare goes then to the Baltic states. So all the Baltic states will enjoy now US traffic coming because of that codeshare. A US carrier coming direct to Riga would make a lot of sense for the Baltic states. We could fill an aircraft just with our feet already today, but the US carriers we talk to always say, if we have the chance to put an aircraft to Riga, we will always compare it to putting maybe a second frequency to a larger airport which we already serve. Yeah. And so far, in the large airlines we talk to, nobody has taken the decision to serve Riga. But it's a matter of time. For us, as we could also serve US direct, doesn't fit to our current business model. In the future, we always say that if there's an aircraft which has the range in the narrow body sector, today there's only an A321 XLR, we would be able to serve New York direct. But that is something which differentiates our simplicity, our model, and therefore we are not focusing on it.
Yeah. You arrived in Latvia around 12 years ago. Well, around 12 years ago. How has the country and the region changed in your personal lives?
Of course, it has changed more towards Europe, right? I think we see this in all countries which joined. The infrastructure is lacking a bit behind still, has to do with the geographical issue. Also, the train system not being ready yet, that will come, the Rail Baltica. But roads have improved significantly if we look at the 3 countries. The air connectivity has significantly improved now. That was done by us. And I think a lot of innovation has come in the Baltic states. They are now seen as serious European countries, playing an important role also now with the war. The maturity level of the leadership of the three Baltic states in that conflict was impressive, yeah, because they were able to demand certain things within Europe, and they got it. So I have to say, working here, coming from Germany, I'm proud of the development of the Baltic states. What I miss a bit is still that we could have much more tourism, inbound tourism in all three Baltic states, and there the three states could do more in Europe. If we look at other regions in Europe, how they advertise for their countries, there could be more happening here. We do our part. We have the airplane, we're bringing the people, but when I go to Europe, I do not see so much advertising as I see from Greece, from Spain, from Italy, in other countries. That is something I think where the three Baltic states can still improve.
You briefly mentioned train connectivity, which is a huge project right now happening with the development of Rail Baltica. Do you see Rail Baltica as a threat or an opportunity?
A big opportunity. If you look at the globe and you have a high-speed train going into an airport, that boosts the airlines. So Rail Baltica arriving at Riga Airport 150 meters from the check-in desk, that's going to be a big boost for us, because we can get much more passengers in much higher frequencies to our planes by train than today. And if people say, yeah, but then you cannot fly to Tallinn anymore, I would be very happy if we would have a high-speed train connection where the passengers come by train, because that would definitely be at a higher frequency than if we fly, and it would be more ecological. So I'm a big fan, but unfortunately I have to wait until at least 2030 before the first train departs.
Does being a pilot help you run an airline?
It definitely helped me when I started being a CEO. I think I was 34 years old when I was first time a CEO of an airline. It helped. It still helps today. If you taxi an A220 to the gate, you shut down the engines, the passengers disembark, you prepare for the next flight. You do understand a lot of these like operational issues. But looking at my colleagues who are not pilots, there is some I really look up to and they've never been pilots. So I would say it helps me. But I wouldn't see this as a criteria being an advantage running an airline.
You still have an active pilot's license, right?
I still have the type rating on the Airbus A220, yeah.
Do you fly?
I flew last time a year ago in our scheduled operation. I keep it in the simulator now. I could go and fly, but at the moment I focus on bond, IPO and coming out of that crisis. But I could do it, and I have to say, for me, it's like a privilege that I can still do that job, which I once learned. But I let that be done by the guys who do this much better than me, because they do it every day.
In the future, maybe you would go to piloting full-time again, or is the management side of business much more interesting for you?
I'm more than 20 years now running airlines, so I think I stay with that. And I have ambitious plans with airBaltic to go forward, and I'll focus on that. No, I would not go back to full-time piloting.
How is your book progressing?
The chapter 1 is done, that first turnaround, and the chapter 2 will be finished once that IPO is complete.
So I have a few quick-fire questions. So it's 2 options. You choose which one you like the most. So Boeing 737 or Airbus A220?
Airbus A220.
Flying or managing an airline?
Managing an airline.
Tennis or golf?
Tennis.
Ice hockey or football?
Ice hockey.
Riga or Munich?
Munich.
Jūrmala, Liepāja or Ventspils?
Liepāja.
Lastly, what is your favorite aircraft from a perspective of an F-geek?
The A350.
Okay. And I have 2 last questions. So if you could obtain a pilot's license for any aircraft, present, future, tomorrow, which one would it be?
I think the A220 is at the moment the most superb aircraft which you can fly. Yeah, the one I have, because there's no more modern cockpit than this one.
What about the Concorde? No?
I've been in the cockpit in Concorde, flown over the Atlantic. I had that pleasure because when I was in British Airways and we had duty trips, then I was able to do that. And it was impressive. but that is very different to an Airbus A220. It's not flying anymore, which I think ecologically is okay, but it's sad that we humans could not continue flying supersonic, that the technology couldn't develop and we would bridge these distances in shorter time. But I'm pretty positive that that will come back in one way or the other, maybe through space, that we will be bridging long distances in much shorter flight. But I would still go for the A220 if you ask me which type rating I can do, because that is a very, very modern and comfortable aircraft for a pilot.
So lastly, if a billionaire approached you and said, I'm going to fund any aircraft you would buy for airBaltic, which aircraft would it be?
We would buy more A220s, definitely. And as I said earlier, something which can reach US A321 XLR. But billionaires shouldn't approach us. Shareholders, future shareholders should come, and we will take that money and then invest it in A220s.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for speaking to us again, and hope you have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you for the interview.
Thank you.